For this video, I'm just going to really quickly give you some tips on making a handle for a mug. Now, I've just completed this gigantic mug with a human face on it. It's supposed to be Santa Claus. I'm not sure. Santa looks a little young. We'll see once I glaze him if I can get him to look like Santa. But it's going to be pretty big and heavy, so I need to build a substantial mug that will go off of the side. So in order to do this, I'm going to take some of my scrap clay, wedge it together, and there are really two main ways that you can build a handle. One is by pulling, and if you are in my class, I will attach a video on how to pull a mug so that you can see that. I'm going to just show you how to hand build a mug. So I'm going to take a chunk. I don't need very much. I might add a little bit of water to this clay. And I'm going to roll out a coil. So when I roll out a coil, I always start with a chunk of clay that looks like a coil to begin with, and I go ahead and roll. Now, especially if you have a mug that is really substantial like mine is, you do not want your coil to be really thin and flimsy. And what I like to do is I like to create a taper, meaning I like my coil to be thicker on top than it is on the bottom. So not by much, just slightly tapered, okay? Then I have to bring my mug over and test out and make sure this handle is going to be big enough. Now, with the amount of clay that I have right here, this handle to me is too large. So I'm going to take a little bit off of the bottom. Now, when we think about handles, we have to think about something that we're going to be able to put I like to put my hands through a handle on a mug. It has to be able to support the base of the mug, and we also want it to look nice. So what I do for my handles, I need to make sure that this fits the mug, and I think it does. Now, there's lots of different types of handles. You know, you have to think about the shape of your handle. I always like to look at the shape of the mug and do something that goes along with that. In this case, I want to flatten out the top of my handle a little bit. In fact, I might flatten out the entire thing. I don't want it to be super flat, just a little bit. And then I'm going to add some water to it. I want to get it nice and smooth. It has a little bit of a taper, but not too much. So it's a little thicker on the top than it is on the bottom. It's not super drastic. And I like it to be fairly flat towards the top. And I have to figure out where I'm going to attach it. So would I attach it something like this? I tend to like my mugs to have a little more of a curve to them like this. I like them to be shaped kind of like a question mark. You also have to think about where on the mug you're going to put this handle. So I want this to be facing outward as I'm drinking. And I need to trim a little bit more off the bottom here. This got a little bit longer than I wanted it to. Okay, and for me, this is pretty much good. So I could have it be something like that. I like it to be that question mark shape. Actually, I might put it back a little bit farther so that when I have my hand through it, I'm not bumping into that ear. So one tip is make a couple of handles. If your handles are really flimsy and you attach them on, it's not gonna work that well. So I like to make a couple of handles actually and leave them sit like this. I'll let them sit like this for maybe an hour, maybe two, uncovered. And then when I pick them up again and they're a little easier, they've set a little bit, they've started to dry out. They're not all the way dry, but they've started to dry, then I can go ahead and attach this on. Now in my case, this clay is not really flimsy, so I'm just gonna go ahead and attach it on right away. So you have to go ahead, you have to make sure that you use plenty of slip and some really nice deep score marks in order to make this work, because if this falls off, well, there goes your mug. And so I have my score marks on both pieces, I have my slip, and I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna support the inside, and I'm gonna wiggle. I wanna wiggle this on there. I wanna make sure that this is really secure, okay? Now I'm gonna tip here and tap the bottom. Now notice what that did to the shape of my handle. So what I can do here is I can get the shape how I want it. I need to make sure there's nothing else that I need to do. Now if you look at mine, I made the cardinal mistake, and look it's not in line. It's slightly crooked from the top to the bottom. I don't really care about that so much, so I'm just gonna leave it, but you might wanna make sure that yours are nice and lined up. And now you're gonna notice, as I let this sit, what's going to happen is gravity is going to take this and it's gonna sink, okay? If you like how that looks, great. If you are like me and you don't like how that looks, I'll show you a solution. So my solution to this is going to be to let my mug dry upside down. So I have a surface here covered in paper towel. My handle needs to hang off the edge ever so slightly. So this is the last thing that I'll do. Everything on my mug is how I want it to be. I'm going to leave that sit. You could put this up to the edge of a table if you'd like, but you want to allow this to hang down and not touch anything. And I'm just going to leave this. And I'll come back in maybe an hour or two. We'll make sure we have this set up really nicely, or this is set up, and then I will flip it over and let the drying process finish with it right side up. It has now been a few days. My project is dried, has not gone into the kiln yet, but you can see my handle is still held up. I don't have any cracks developing. There's maybe a little one under there, but that can be fixed with some glaze. And there you go, you can see how it turned out. I got the nice question mark shape that I wanted because I did let it dry upside down, and then I flipped it afterwards. Here are a couple of more mugs that I have made over the years, so you can see I definitely gravitate towards that type of handle. I like that question mark shape. This one has a little detail along the bottom. This one maybe sags down a little more than the rest of them. Again, it's all personal preference, but I really like to make sure that they are substantial. I like them to be thicker on top than they are on the bottom. See how there's that nice taper? And I like to be able to make sure that I can put my hand all the way through the mug. So, I hope that helps.